When processing telephone calls, one of the most important things is to redirect appropriately. It's highly unlikely that where a person phones a big organization, you get through to the correct person first time round, except if you have a direct number, and even then it's still unlikely. The phone doesn't always go through to a call center or through a PA. Therefore, everybody in the organization should know how to redirect a call. You should have the correct extensions, you should know how the system works, and there should be a good loop. One of the favorite methodologies in these systems is to have an answering system, so that if a phone is routed, there's an answering system and the person can leave a message and then that person can get back directly. If that does not exist, well, then the best thing is that there's a loop back to you. You must then take the number, take the message, and make sure that the person to whom the call was directed answers to that call. Remember, customers are the lifeblood of your organization. Without them, you do not exist. When processing telephone calls, it's very important to know your system. I can't teach you that because I don't know which system you have, but all systems have manuals and most systems implemented have specialized training. If you're a new employee and you have to operate the system, demand the training. Ask for the manual, ask to be trained, and in fact, not only ask, demand to be trained. It could be detrimental to the organization if you do not know how the system works, how to direct calls, how to put on hold, etc., etc. So make sure that you get trained in it. I have mentioned this earlier, but it's very important to close the customer loop. Now, what does it mean to close a customer loop? Simply, it means that the customer should always receive a call back. There should be closure for the customer, not for you, for the customer. A customer will not phone you to chit-chat. The customer is phoning you to get something very specific. Make sure that the customer gets an answer to that, and if you couldn't help, well, then there should be appropriate closure. That's the customer loop. It could be where a call is redirected, that you make sure that the person to whom the call is directed gets the customer's number. Make sure that that person phones back. There's the answering system. If it's an online system, well, then there should be some type of feedback or some type of proof that the customer indeed was satisfied. Closing the customer loop means getting back to the customer and ensuring that the customer is satisfied or as close as possible to being satisfied after the call has been made. If you're in a place where you need to process calls, then be prepared. Have the necessary documentation at hand. Make sure that everything's open in front of your computer. If I talk to one of my customers, I make sure that all their files are open before I take the call. I make sure that I can very quickly get hold of the information necessary. If you do not have these documents in front of you, well, then ask to phone the customer back and do so. And otherwise, ask to have a moment and just get everything ready. But make sure that you have the information open. Customers do not wake up in the morning and it's their best thing to phone you. They don't wake up and say, wow, I can't wait to speak to this person. No, it's a burden to them. They have other things to do. So make sure that you keep their time short with you and that you get to them quickly and directly and that you solve the problem as properly as possible. One of the most important things, and also one of those never taught things, is that when you work with customers, and any person for that matter, it could be a supplier or internal person, a manager, is that there should always be a database open. People move offices, people leave jobs, people do other things, and you wouldn't know if you're still working on an old database. So it's a wonderful opportunity for you to keep the database open, to data mine. While you're busy talking to this customer, make sure that everything's up to date. You could just ask a few questions such as, do you still reside at 261 Steenbras Street? Or, is your telephone number still this or that? Is your fax number still this or that? Keep a database open at all times. If you're working and you have access to a customer database or internal database, make sure that it's minimized somewhere on your laptop or on your PC so that you can always update customer information as soon as they call in. It's also very important when processing calls that you should keep record. You must know who phoned you, when they phoned you, and if you have to direct this call, you need to have proper records so that you can do this properly. Have a date, have a time, know why this person wants to speak to whomever it is that they want to speak to, what the reason is, when they want, what type of feedback they want. So it's very good to have something on paper, a call record, or a notepad in which you can record these things. Many organizations prescribe these data sheets, and so that you have it right in front of you when somebody calls in. But not having record could cause immense problems. People are going to ask you, who phoned me, when did they phone, what was it about? So make sure that you have good record of all telephone calls coming in and going out, for that matter. This point probably relates to the previous one. It's about having a messaging system ready. Make sure that you can record everything that comes in and that you can direct messages appropriately. There are a lot of stationery in this regard readily available, where you can just ask a few questions and then tear it off and put it on the person who has to return this call's desk. But make sure that you have a messaging system in front of you, and do not forget to put down the date and the time. Lastly, it's very important to have a complaint system. We grow from complaints. You never grow from compliments. Think about that. When you go to a shopping mall and you buy milk at a grocer, and the milk is good, do you go to the manager and thank them for the wonderful milk, for the fact that the milk is fresh? No, you never do that. You take your milk and you go home. But hell knows, if that milk is sour, what would happen? You would go straight to the manager's office and you would complain immediately. You see, that's the way the world works. People complain. People do not compliment. Do not bank on compliments. Do not weigh up compliments with complaints. Complaints will always win, without doubt. But grow from these complaints. These complaints can teach you so much. These complaints can sharpen the edge, can make sure that you're in shape the whole time. Thrive on complaints. Forget about the compliments. If it happens, well, smile about it and be thankful. But grow from complaints and make sure that you have a complaint system ready so that you can record these things and so that the whole organization can learn from these wonderful things called complaints.